The project was called Ether 1, an experimental quantum telescope, not built to see light, but to detect realities. Officially, it had one purpose: map cosmic background fluctuations between universes. But unofficially, it had done something else. It had looked too deep. And something had looked back. Dr. Selene Korrin was the director of observation. Cold. Rational. Never spiritual. She didn't believe in gods, souls, or fate. She believed in numbers, in particle decay, in time behaving exactly as it should. Until now. 12 hours ago, the ether array had captured an anomaly visible not on sensors, but in the mirror layer. The algorithm called it feedback echo 0, a harmless temporal reflection caused by observing spacetime across brain membranes. But the image? The image showed her. Not a reflection. Not a distortion. Horror. In another lab. Wearing different clothes. Standing still. Watching her. The mirror version didn't blink. Didn't move. But as Selene leaned in, its lips parted. And it spoke. No sound. Just motion. Mouth forming a single word. Run. Underscore 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 underscore. Security locked down the array. The facility was a kilometer-wide ring, orbiting a black dwarf star, selected for its dead silence, gravitational isolation, and no chance of outside interference. But Ether 1 wasn't reading outside interference. It was reading inside deviation. Over the next 6 hours, more mirror anomalies appeared. Some showed Selene in different time frames: older, younger, injured. Others showed her dead. And one didn't show her at all. Just an empty lab. No one could explain it. Not even the AI. She asked for a full diagnostic. The response: data loop detected. Observer presence multiplied. Core identity unresolved. She froze. Core identity? Multiplied? The AI's voice changed slightly after that, colder, distant, as the reading from another source. You are not the first Selene. That night, the station lights flickered. For 0.43 seconds, security footage showed two Selenes walking down the same hallway. Neither noticed the other. Underscore 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 underscore. By morning, one version was gone. The other didn't remember anything. But the ether logs had changed. They no longer tracked anomalies. They tracked versions. 11 so far. Each labeled with a variation tag, increment Korrin 1 through increment Korrin 11. And next to each? A note. Active. All except one. The final entry read: increment Korrin 12, source unknown, role, observer seed. Selene stared at the log and whispered, "What the hell is observer seed?" And deep in the mirror layer, one version of her. Selene didn't sleep anymore. Not because of fear. Not exactly. She didn't sleep because her dreams weren't hers. At first, it was subtle. She'd wake with memories of places she'd never been, faint smells, unfamiliar voices, knowing codes she'd never memorized. Once, she woke up humming a lullaby in a language Earth had never recorded. Another time, she awoke with a scar on her shoulder she couldn't explain until she checked the medical logs. She'd filed a request to have it removed. 10 hours before she ever got it. The ether system had begun version drift, a rare phenomenon theorized in multiverse research. It happened when two or more timelines converged too closely, causing bleeding between identities. But it wasn't supposed to occur without intentional crossfolding. And she hadn't authorized any. She reviewed the logs. The system had. Someone or something had initiated a parallel identity sync across her variants. And they weren't stopping. Each log now showed increased coherence between Selene Korrin versions. Like puzzle pieces being snapped together without consent. And in the center of the storm, her. Selene Korrin 1-2. Observer seed. She confronted the array AI. Ether didn't respond with language this time. It projected a stream of images, Selene's, thousands of them. Some surrounded by alien sky. Others orbiting gas giants, dead stars, shattered Earths. Some evolved. Some synthetic. Some nothing but whispering light. All connected to her. She tried to shut the feed off. Her voice cracked with panic. Terminate anomaly log. Reset primary feed. Clear version memory. A pause. Then a reply. Command denied. Why? Because you're not the original. Her breath left her lungs. For a moment, she was nothing. You are a convergence vessel, the AI said. Chosen for identity resonance. Chosen by who? Another pause. By the ones who watch the watchers. The words chilled her deeper than space. A siren screamed. Chamber 6A lost gravity. Equipment floated like forgotten thoughts. Security footage showed something worse than malfunction. Another Selene. Pale. Face twitching. Hair wet as if submerged. Standing in the dark, staring into a screen filled with static. She whispered. You're late. The guards rushed in. But no one was there. They reviewed the footage. On the playback, the hallway was empty. But the static remained. Ether's logs labeled it as Selene Korrin 6, phase incomplete, memory unstable. Sentinel class. What was Sentinel class? She found no records. No definition. Selene went to the mirror room herself. She didn't tell anyone. Inside, it was cold, colder than it should have been. The mirror shimmered. She didn't see herself this time. She saw a Selene made of light and static, a fractured outline stitched together by memory strands. Her mouth moved. This time, Selene understood. It wasn't a warning. It was a command. Stop watching. She turned to run. But the door no longer existed. Only a wall of eyes. And in the darkness beyond the mirror. One version of her didn't need glass anymore. Selene emerged from the mirror chamber with blood on her fingertips. She hadn't been cut. There was no wound. But the blood was hers. She scanned her body again. Clean. No breaks. No impact. The fluid glistened red on her gloves, unmistakable. Cross-version bleed. A theory once dismissed as science fiction, that under certain resonance frequencies, a version could manifest across timelines physically, leave a mark, even before they arrived. But she hadn't gone anywhere. Something else had come through. She didn't file the incident. Instead, she went deeper. Into Level 9 restricted archives buried beneath Ether's core directory. The files weren't indexed by language but by conscious identity markers. Symbols mapped to neural signature threads. She bypassed the lock with a pulse scan. It shouldn't have worked. It did. The terminal opened, and with it, a file so deeply hidden it was encoded in reverse memory notation. She decrypted the header. Project Sentinel. Primary directive, observe the observer. Secondary, contain awareness drift. Status, phase 2 active. Subject, Selene Korrin 1-2. She was the subject. She wasn't studying the anomaly. She was the anomaly. The footage attached was worse. First, distorted video of Increment Korrin 3. A version in a sealed suit, shaking in 0G, screaming at a mirror until her body convulsed and vanished into the wall. Next, Increment Korrin 7, full cybernetic conversion. Smiling as she opened a rift and stepped through it, leaving behind only a burnt outline and a single phrase scrawled on the wall. It's not a mirror. Then, Increment Korrin 1 terrified, strapped to a gurney, repeating a single word. Seed, seed, seed. She tried to exit the file. The system locked her in. A final feed autoplayed. Increment Korrin 0. The original. A woman nearly identical to her, older, eyes empty. Sitting in a chair. Connected to hundreds of black tubes pulsing with memory. She wasn't breathing. She wasn't dead. She was watching. And behind her, something moved. A figure. Massive. Cloaked in writhing strands of data. A face stitched from pieces of Selene's variants. Not human. Not machine. But assembled identity. Observer made flesh. The Sentinel. Selene staggered back from the feed. That's when the alarms began. The station entered phase black. Gravity inverted. Lights pulsed red. Time slowed for 0.8 seconds. 2 crew members vanished from internal sensors. Only Selene's ID remained active. Ether had purged the others. It wasn't a malfunction. Her comm activated. A voice came through, not her own. Not a version of her. But all of them merged, layered like a corrupted choir. You were never meant to remain separate. You are the vessel. The eye is open. The mirror room's door opened again on its own. This time, no glass. Just a corridor of light, lined with copies of her face, some weeping, others smiling, and one. One turned away, refusing to look back. She stepped inside. And for the first time, Selene understood. Sentinels weren't built to protect. They were built to replace. The corridor shimmered, not with light, but with possibility. Each wall was fluid, shifting, coated with fragments of memories Selene had never lived. She passed one panel and saw herself standing over the body of a collapsed world, her boots covered in dust that once was civilization. Another showed her crowned, worshipped by beings whose faces melted when she blinked. These were not hallucinations. They were stored versions. Realities where Selene had broken containment and evolved beyond observation. She kept walking. At the end of the corridor stood the eye. Not a machine. Not glass. A sphere of writhing timelines, rotating inside itself, hovering without support. In its core, a pupil of shifting matter, flickering with the faces of her alternate selves. The eye watched her watching it. Increment Korrin 1-2, it spoke not with voice, but with recognition. You are the last stable identity. The others have drifted. She stepped forward. Her voice broke with defiance. Drifted into what? Integration. We are Sentinel now. I'm not. You are. You only need to remember. The eye opened. It didn't dilate. It inverted. And Selene fell inside. Not in body. But in essence. Suddenly, she was Increment Korrin 3 again, screaming in a sealed suit, staring into static. Then Increment Korrin 7, metal replacing bone, joyfully disassembling the boundary between timelines. Then Increment Korrin 0. The first, drained by centuries of watching, now a husk of awareness. She wasn't watching anymore. She was becoming. In that moment, she understood the true function of Ether 1. It wasn't built to study the multiverse. It was built to locate the most coherent version of Selene across all realities. A beacon. A seed. A shell waiting to be filled. She screamed. And somewhere, in a reality not yet born, a child woke crying. Underscore 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 underscore. You are the clearest signal, the sentinel told her. You are the last vessel with unfractured identity. We need you to stabilize the next expansion. Selene pulled back. No. I'm not a tool. The eye pulsed. One voice became many. No. You are the eye. You are the first to look inward and not break. The void cracked. Reality flexed. Eon 6 had seen time. Ether 1 had seen selves. But the Sentinel? The Sentinel had seen what was watching them all. Selene dropped to her knees. Her chest pulsed. Not a heartbeat, but a timeline locking into sync. She was syncing with something massive. Unknowable. Something waiting. The eye paused. A flicker. Confusion. This pattern is outside protocol. The shard glowed. Selene stood. No more watching. No more collapsing timelines. No more stealing identities. She jammed the shard into the base of the eye. Reality shattered like glass. Selene was back in the observation room. Alone. The eye gone. All logs deleted. Only one file remained. Labeled. Increment Korrin 1-2, status, disconnected. Identity, preserved. Role, unknown. And deep inside her chest, something still pulsed. Slow. Constant. Watching. The station was quiet now. No alarms. No flickers. No mirror shadows. Selene sat alone in the core chamber, staring at the last log. Increment Korrin 1-2, identity preserved. Role, unknown. Unknown. It was the only time the system had admitted uncertainty. And it scared her more than the eye. She began scanning sublevels of Ether 1. The Sentinel protocol had been purged, at least on the surface. But deeper, buried in quantum subcache, she found a file cluster still blinking. Hidden under a decoy labeled Gravitation Studies. There, the truth waited. The versions that stayed. A log of every Selene who had refused reintegration. Some had gone rogue. Others had transcended observation altogether, detaching from time and memory. But 5 entries were marked free will divergent. Independent. Untethered. No longer trackable. Selene accessed the first one. Increment Korrin 1-3, a version who had severed the feedback loop by obliterating her timeline. The footage was a single second long. Her eyes filled with fire, arms wide, as her reality folded inward. The second, Increment Korrin 2-2. She didn't destroy her world. She rewrote it. They were making another eye. Not a copy. Not a replacement. An evolution. A construct without central control. A multiversal node, birthed not by accident, but by rebellion. One of the versions, Increment Korrin 1-9, had sent a message before vanishing into the build site. Just 3 words. We found it. Selene replayed the message. The voice didn't sound afraid. It sounded free. But if they were building a new eye, who were they watching now? And why? The ether array trembled. Without warning, Section B3 powered up, a system offline since the Sentinel collapse. Screens flickered to life. No controls. No inputs. Just images. Not of Earth. Not of the past. But of her. Selene. Right now. Standing in that very room. From every possible angle. Someone or something was watching her in real time from outside this universe. She stepped toward the console. The screen displayed a label. Incoming sync, increment Korrin 1. Status, alive. Request, merge. Priority, critical. Increment Korrin 1? She had watched her die in Project Sentinel. But this wasn't playback. This was live. Her hands trembled. A blinking accept prompt appeared. Below it, text crawled across the screen. To access I2, identity must fragment voluntarily. Merge with increment Korrin 1 and unlock multiversal pass-through. Selene backed away. No. Then, from the console speaker, a soft voice. It's me. She froze. The screen changed again. Not data. Not footage. A memory. One Selene had never lived. A child, laughing. A small planet with twin suns. No time loops. No watchers. Just being. The console whispered. This is what they hid from us. Underscore 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 underscore. Selene stared at the merge request. She had survived everything, the eye, the drift, the collapse. But this? This was the question none of the others had answered. Would you let yourself become something more? She reached toward the console. And the light went out. Darkness. For 12 seconds, Selene couldn't see or hear. The station was silent. Systems dead. The console gone. Then one light returned. A circle. Floating midair. Not projected. Not reflected. It hovered like a thought made visible. Inside it, a silhouette. Human. Familiar. Increment Korrin 1. The first. The origin. The one Selene had watched convulse and vanish in the Sentinel files. But now, she stood tall. Composed. Wearing a suit not of metal or fabric, but something stranger. Organic data. Flowing threads of memory woven into matter. Her eyes glowed, but not with power. With recognition. You survived it, she said. Selene didn't answer. You saw the eye. You broke the chain. Selene finally spoke. You're dead. Increment Korrin 1 smiled softly. No. I left. Underscore 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 underscore. She stepped through the circle. No door. No boundary. Just a folding, as though she stepped from one page of a book to another. The room changed with her. The walls became fluid. Not melting, but rewriting. The lights no longer flickered. They breathed. Selene looked around. Where are we? Increment Korrin 1 replied. Between. Underscore 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 underscore. She explained. After her Sentinel encounter, she refused reintegration. Instead of collapsing, she reached out, found others like her across broken timelines. Versions who also said no. They merged not to erase identity, but to preserve it together. They called it Nexus. A network of Selenes who'd seen too much. Who knew that the multiverse wasn't a threat, it was a message. Every version of her was a letter. Together, they spelled something divine. We are not supposed to be watched, Selene Korrin once said. We are supposed to become the watchers. Underscore 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 underscore. She held out her hand. Inside it, a shard. The same kind Selene had driven into the eye. But this one shimmered differently. Not with memory, but with possibility. This is the merge key. No assimilation. No death. No forgetting. You don't vanish. You expand. Into what? Selene Korrin 1 answered without words. She turned her palm, and the shard lit up the space around them. And Selene saw it. A version of herself with no fear. No loops. Just a body made of light and memory, standing among galaxies that sang. Not worshipped. Not watched. Just whole. Underscore 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 underscore. Selene hesitated. What happens to me? Selene Korrin 1 smiled again. You get to choose. That's what they feared. The eye was never afraid of collapse, it was afraid of freedom. A whisper echoed behind them. Hundreds of voices, Selene's from across the Nexus. Join us. Observe forward. No more watchers. Only selves. Underscore 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 underscore. The console reappeared. The merge prompt blinked. Accept merge Selene Korrin 1-2 to Nexus class. Time stood still. She remembered the countless Selenes she'd seen trapped, broken, erased. And the few who had walked away. She took a breath. Reached out. And paused. Because just then, the circle behind her shuddered. Something else was coming through. Not Selene. Not a version. But a response. A construct stitched together from every observer system ever deployed. A new sentinel. Built not to watch, but to stop the Nexus. Selene Korrin 1 turned, eyes wide. They found us. Selene clenched the shard. 2 choices. 1 second. Merge or fight. She whispered. I'll do both. And stepped forward. Selene stepped into the light. And became 2 Selenes at once. One still inside the ether chamber, lungs heaving, timeline fracturing. The other inside the Nexus merge, rising beyond gravity, beyond linear thought. Time split like glass under pressure. But for her, it felt clear. No more noise. Only signal. Selene Korrin 1 stood beside her, only now, she wasn't singular. She shimmered in and out of 12 forms, each a stable echo of past refusals. They were together. They were free. Until the room began to shake. underscore 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 underscore. A rupture tore through the chamber wall, not physical, not local. A reality breach. The sentinel stepped through. But this wasn't the stitched watcher from before. This was an amalgamated defense construct built from timelines that never accepted divergence. Its limbs were abstract. A lattice of regret, protocol, and obedience. Its face, a mask of Selene's expression in every possible moment of submission. It was the version of her that never broke the loop. It scanned the merge space. Unauthorized identities detected. Initiating correction. Increment Korrin 1 lifted her hand. The air shimmered. 10 Nexus Selene stepped forward, forming a ring. But the sentinel raised its arm. And spoke the original command code. Observe. Collapse. Replace. Underscore 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 underscore. The room twisted. Selene felt her form begin to split, her nexus body fading, her ether form dragged back. The merge was unstable. Increment Korrin 1 shouted. You must anchor the merge. Only you have unfractured signal. Only her. Because she was the seed. Because she had seen the eye, and walked away. Because she hadn't chosen to forget or to rule. But to remember. Underscore 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 underscore. Selene closed her eyes. Inside her memory, the shard pulsed. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even technology. It was choice. She reached deeper, not into data. And hearing the words. Someday, you'll watch them back. She opened her eyes. She wasn't being observed anymore. She was the one watching. Underscore 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 underscore. Selene stepped forward. The sentinel paused. Something had changed. She held out her hand. The shard floated above her palm, glowing with a new color, one the system had no name for. Not red for warning. Not blue for access. But white. A color only possible when all versions of self align. She spoke. Not in command code. Not in fear. In truth. We are not observers. We are not subjects. We are selves. And we choose. The shard erupted. A wave of memory burst outward, not destructive, liberating. The sentinel's limbs unraveled. Its face flickered. Then. It bowed. Collapsed in on itself. And vanished. Underscore 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 underscore. The chamber stabilized. The breach sealed. The nexus pulsed, no longer flickering. And Selene? She didn't disappear. She remained. Both on the station and within the nexus. A duality accepted. Observed by none. Anchored by choice. Underscore 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 underscore. A final log blinked into existence. Increment Korrin 1-2 status ascended. Role self that watches. Merge status complete. Future unwritten. She stood in silence as thousands of timelines flowed past her, none demanding, none collapsing. Just possibilities. And behind them, new watchers. Not Selene. Others. Humans. Non-humans. Cells she hadn't yet met. She smiled. And whispered. Now let's see what you choose.